Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about one of the 4 pillars of PMDD conflict. This is one of the sure ways that you're going to end up in an argument with your PMDD partner. And I want to talk about it today and give you the tools about what you can do about it. And that is criticism. So I know a lot of times I've talked to you in the past about hurtful words, but the only reason that these hurtful words really do damage to your PMDD relationship is because they involve this one factor, and that is criticism. A lot of times, when your PMDD partner criticizes you, meaning if you suffer with PMDD or you don't suffer with PMDD, as long as one of you are in the relationship and you have PMDD, I consider you a PMDD partner. And when there is criticism involved in the relationship where one of the partners is belittling the other partner, they're undermining their self-esteem, they're undermining their confidence. A lot of times this does more damage than you know. And when you're in PMDD, a lot of times this can happen when you are in that place of conflict, when you're in the middle of a fight and you feel attacked because your PMDD partner has called you out on doing something that has triggered them. And then you counter your reaction with some form of criticism. What I want to let you know is the criticism that you display to your PMDD partner in moments of anger will last way longer than the argument. So a lot of times PMDD partners will assume that whatever they say when they're triggered is just going to last for the length of that argument. And then after you apologize or you get back in your follicular days or whatever it is that happens that causes you to move forward in the relationship, you think that the damage that's done by the criticism is over. I am here to tell you that criticism is one of those things that stick in your PMDD relationship. And what happens is when you criticize your PMDD partner and you say negative things about them and you insult them and you nitpick about their behaviors and you nitpick about what you told them to do that they just couldn't do. Meaning, if they went to the store and you told them to get a certain kind of chicken and they got a different kind of chicken and you criticize them because of it, or you asked them to clean up the dishes and they didn't wipe down the counters, or if you're in PMDD and you ask them to just be more supportive, whatever that looks like, and they don't show up in a way that you think is acceptable, you begin to criticize them. And the belittling looks like, all I'm asking you to do is blah, blah, blah. Like you're making it seem like whatever you're asking them to do is so simple that even a minimally intelligent person could do it, and they're just not able to do it. They're not able to show up in a way that you need them to be. And you're saying this out of frustration because you're really wanting a level of support from your PMDD partner, but the way that you're communicating it when you're frustrated is messing with their confidence, it's messing with their self-esteem, and it's criticizing. You think it's criticizing the behavior, but they're perceiving it as criticizing them as a person. They will begin to think you don't want to be with them as a person because of the way that you are criticizing them. So I want you to really recognize that when you're frustrated with your PMDD partner, I get it. I understand it. I've been there. I've been so triggered, so upset, so insulted, all of these things about, things that my PMDD partner has done in the past. But the criticism that you do in response to their behavior, it sticks with them. So I remember earlier in my journey with my PMDD partner where I would say certain things out of frustration, borderline in PMDD rage, and I would just criticize. I remember saying one of the most hurtful things that kept coming up, when we had future arguments, he would keep bringing it up. And I just remember being like, I can't believe he's still bringing up that same comment. I was almost belittling the damage that I was doing. And it was one of those times where I just felt like I wasn't being supported. And I was in PMDD at the time. And I said, you just need to man up. And I remember even after I said it, I remember thinking like, "Oh, that's kind of harsh." Because those moments in PMDD where you say things that are like below the belt, and as soon as you say them, you know that you've said something below the belt. You know that you said something that you weren't supposed to say. And I remember saying it and being like, "Ooh," but it's almost like you're committed. Like once it comes out of your mouth, you're like, yeah, like I meant that, even though you probably didn't mean it in the moment because you immediately felt that sense of guilt. And I remember saying that to him because I was really needing him to show up in a certain way, and he just wasn't. And so that's when I made that comment. And so throughout our whole relationship after that, every single time we would argue, or like 9 times out of 10 when we would argue, he would say, you're the one that told me that I needed to man up. You're the one that said this. And I didn't recognize that the criticism in that comment would stick with my PMDD partner for as long as it did. So that's why I want to talk to you about this tool, because what I'm seeing a lot of times is comments that you've made when you're in PMDD, comments that you've made when you're in PMDD rage. You're feeling a release by finally getting out why your PMDD partner has triggered you, and you're feeling justified because you're making these forms of criticism based off of things that they've actually done without really recognizing the damage that it's doing to your relationship afterwards. So when you criticize your PMDD partner, it lasts way longer, like I said before. And so I was trying to get back to that place of being back on the same page as my PMDD partner, but because of the hurtful words that I had said, it was hard for us to move forward because I was saying all of these lovely, sweet, nice things. And all my PMDD partner was remembering was me telling him to man up. And the same thing with him, he had said certain comments to me that were criticizing me. So there were moments where I was being vulnerable with him and I was saying, hey, like this triggered me and blah, blah, blah. And his response is, you're so sensitive. You're so effing sensitive. And I remember feeling so criticized and so hurt because in the moment I wasn't trying to be sensitive. I was just trying to communicate my feelings. But because that was his perception of it, it stuck with me the next time I tried to talk to him. I was like, oh, I don't want to be too sensitive. Like, I don't want to be in that place where I'm being so vulnerable that he could potentially call me too sensitive. And the same thing with him, he was in that place where he was wanting to be open and vulnerable. And he was remembering that I told him he needed to man up. So he was thinking, oh, it's not a safe place for me to open up to my partner because they're just going to tell me to man up. And I was thinking it's not a safe place for me to be open and vulnerable with my PMDD partner because they're going to tell me I'm too sensitive. So you see how this criticism has built a wall in between me and my ex PMDD partner? Like that was like one of the turning points of where we started to filter our communication. And when you're in that place of filtering your communication with your PMDD partner, you know the intimacy is going to leave soon. You know the emotional connection is going to leave soon because if you really have to take the time to think about what you're going to say and it's so calculated with your PMDD partner and you're in that place of walking on eggshells, there's a wall that's being built in between you. So if you're in that place right now, and really ask yourself, do you feel like you're walking on eggshells with your PMDD partner? Has your PMDD partner criticized you to the point where you have to second guess what you're going to say to them? Because that's where I was, that's where he was. And what ended up happening is we held so many things inside because there was a fear of criticism. It was almost like, I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to hear how awful I am. I don't want to hear that I'm not doing things right. I don't want to hear, all of these negative things about me. So I'm going to shield that vulnerable side of me and only show you what I want to show you so that you can give me the feedback that I need to get from you. Meaning, if I need to get positive feedback from you, I'm only going to show you positive actions. Even when I'm feeling negative, I'm just going to pretend that I'm feeling positive so that you can give me those positive affirmations that I need. So this is how you end up in that loop of delusion that I talked about a couple episodes back. It's because you end up in this place where you're not being open and honest. You're being fake and phony to get the reaction that you want from your PMDD partner. You almost think that in order to not get criticized for who you are as a person, that you need to show up as a lesser version of yourself and you need to portray that certain things don't bother you. I felt like that. I literally felt like when things that my PMDD partner said and did bothered me, I couldn't bring them up because I was going to be told I was too sensitive. And in turn, things that he may have wanted to complain about, he felt like he couldn't bring up because I was going to tell him to man up. Granted, I had apologized for telling him to man up. And I think he apologized for calling me sensitive. I think it hurt my feelings so much that I didn't even bring it up. But what I'm saying is, even if your PMDD partner apologizes for that criticism, for those harsh words, it doesn't mean that it doesn't stick with you. What that means is your PMDD partner could apologize and say, babe, I'm really sorry. I was triggered. I was upset. I was in anger. I didn't really mean that. I don't really think you're a piece of crap. I don't really think that you're too sensitive. I don't really think this. But you could still be holding on to it in your mind. Just because your PMDD partner asked for forgiveness and apologized doesn't mean that you're still not holding that over their head. And that wall is still there. And so you may be in that place where you're saying, Dr. Rose, my PMDD partner has criticized me. They have belittled me. They have made me feel bad about myself, especially when I'm in PMDD. What is it that I can do to rebuild that confidence? Because when your PMDD partner criticizes you, your confidence goes down the drain. I know for me, I felt literally like a piece of crap, when my PMDD partner criticized anything I said or did because I felt like I was trying my best and I was still being told it wasn't good enough. So I started to look inside myself and be like, man, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you do need to do better in these areas. Maybe there is things that you think that you've dealt with. I know a lot of times for me, it was my childhood trauma. I hated the fact that my childhood trauma kept coming up in my relationship, but it was a thing. So I got to that point where I began to deny it in an effort to not have to deal with the criticism about the fact that I was continuously being triggered by my childhood trauma. He was like, why can't you just get over it? Why don't you stop living in the past? And I was like, man, maybe I do need to stop living in the past. without really, going through the steps of really digging deep into the criticism. So I'm going to give you some tools today about what you can do to rebuild your confidence after your PMDD partner has criticized you and it's taking a toll on you. Because until you deal with this, it's going to be really hard for you to be in the relationship because you're going to start to think that your partner is an enemy because they're the ones that are causing you to be in this place where you're having to rebuild your confidence. You're going to say, oh, I shouldn't be with someone that makes me feel not confident or whatever it is that you're calling it. Because I remember I didn't call it that. I used to call it like a slump. I used to say I was in a slump because my partner referred to it as that. So when he started saying he was in a slump, I was like, yeah, I'm in a slump, which means that I'm just in a place where I'm temporarily down. And that's all I was admitting to. When really my confidence was being challenged. It was being diminished. It was being torn down because I was consistently being criticized and I felt like there was nothing that I could do right. So the first thing that I want you to do when you've been criticized by your PMDD partner and you're trying to get over it and you're trying to move forward, you have to acknowledge your feelings. You have to acknowledge the fact that your PMDD partner hurt your feelings and your emotions. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to feel upset. I don't want you to avoid it. I made that mistake before in thinking that if I avoid how I'm feeling, maybe I'll feel differently. It's almost like whatever you resist will persist. If you resist the anger, if you resist the hurt, if you resist the bitterness, it's just going to come on stronger. I need you to process how you're feeling. I need you to feel okay with not feeling okay with the way that your PMDD partner criticized you. I don't want you making excuses for what your PMDD partner said and did. I did this so many times when I was trying to forgive because in my mind, the way my brain works, if I can make up an excuse for you as to why you said and did these hurtful things to me, then I will be less upset with you because I know that there's a reason why you did it. So if I can create a story in my mind, especially while I'm in PMDD, as to why you're talking to me like that, oh, maybe he's just tired. Maybe he just had a long day. Maybe I'm just really getting on his nerves. Maybe he needed me to be more loving and I'm not. Maybe because I'm going internal and I'm being avoidant, that's why he's reacting like that. Maybe I'm not giving him the love that it is that he needs. Maybe if I was more loving, he would talk to me more loving. It was always an excuse that I was making as to why I was in this place until I just realized one day how my PMDD partner treats me has everything to do with them and nothing to do with me. So if my PMDD partner criticizes me, if my PMDD partner gets jealous, if my PMDD partner gets insecure, that's not because of me. That's because of my PMDD partner. And so I need you to really adopt that mentality that what your PMDD partner says and does to you comes out of them. It has nothing to do with you yourself. You're not making them criticize you. You're not making them blame you. You are existing, and how they are reacting to you is a result of what is inside of them. So, a lot of times when PMDD partners are criticizing you, it's because of insecurities that they have within themselves, things that they may be mirroring. And I'm going to do a whole nother episode on that mirroring effect where things that are wrong with them, they're projecting on you and saying that they're wrong with you. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to practice some self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness, even when these triggers are coming up for you, where you're remembering the hurtful words, you're remembering the criticism. Treat yourself with kindness when they come up. I don't want you beating yourself up and being like, oh, I should be over this. It shouldn't matter to me. It does matter to you, and it matters to you for a reason. So just like if your friend came to you and they told you that some person that they were dating was talking crap about them, was talking down to them, what would you tell that friend? What would you remind your friend of? And I've had this happen for me so many times lately that it's literally brought me to tears because this tool is practicing the self-compassion. Sometimes when I'm telling you to practice self-compassion, you may not have it in within yourself. There have been days, even this week, where I didn't have it within myself, where I was having all of these intrusive thoughts about things that my ex-PMDD partner said, like, I'm not a good wife, I'm not a good partner, I'm not a good this, I'm not a good that. And I just said it out loud, to one of my friends, actually two of them. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're an amazing wife. You're so nurturing, you're so giving, you're so loving, you're so affectionate. You would do anything for your partner. And they were giving me examples of how they see me show up in relationships. And I really was like, it brought me to tears because sometimes you need that third party to remind you of who you really are when you've been so beaten down by criticism. Because when you get to that point where you're starting to believe the criticism, that's when it's doing damage with you as a person. Meaning, even after I left the relationship with my ex-PMDD partner, I was still believing the criticism. And so it took me having that third party that reminded me that I'm not a bad partner, that I am worthy of love, that someone is going to love me in a way that resonates with them, resonates with me, and gives us both what we deserve. And I had to kind of restore my faith and restore my hope in that because, I was like, oh, here I go. I'm in another failed relationship. All of the criticism, all of the negative things that were said about me must be true because I couldn't make the relationship work. It must be true. But then I really got into this place of practicing self-compassion. And that took me speaking to someone else about being open and vulnerable about my insecurities and what I was feeling because of the criticism. And I remember my best friend saying, like, I can't believe that you're even questioning this. Like, they literally said, you never question yourself like this. And I said, you know what I did? I never questioned myself because I was never criticized to the level that I was in this past relationship. Criticism can ruin your confidence. And I talked to you about that on previous episodes, but the tool for this is to practice self-compassion. Give yourself affirmations. I did this. I think I've talked about this before. I did this before with one of my breakups where my ex-PMDD partners cheated on me and I had to use sticky notes and put them all over my mirror to just remind myself of who I was because I had been torn down so much that sometimes you get criticized so much you forget who you are. You forget how amazing you are. You forget how your PMDD partner used to look at you in the beginning. Think back to the beginning where your ex-PMDD partner or your PMDD partner thought you were the best thing since sliced bread and thought you were amazing and perfect. I remember my ex-PMDD partner used to call me perfect. I went from being perfect to like a piece of crap, all within one relationship. And that's how fickle, how up and down emotions can make your PMDD partner speak to you. So you have to be in that place of rebuilding yourself, whether you choose to stay in the relationship or you don't. If you're choosing to stay in the relationship, especially you need to use these tools. So the next thing is you need to challenge the negative thoughts. What did your PMDD partner say about you? Okay, so challenge it. Like when my PMDD partner said that, there was a time, and I think I talked about this before, but there was a time where he was going through a lot. He had a health scare, and I was doing my best to be there for him. I did all the things. I drove a billion miles to pick up his vehicle and come back and like, make sure he had everything he needed, but it wasn't in the specific way that he actually needed, but so kind of like my efforts were not acknowledged because it wasn't the things that he specifically needed, meaning he had to eat a certain diet. So I spent hundreds of dollars going to the grocery store, buying the food that he needed, spent time cooking it, brought it back to the house, drove hundreds of miles to see him. And I was still, told after all of that and bringing him home through an airport and still working a full-time job and still homeschooling my daughter and still having private clients and still recording podcasts every week. And I was told, the next time that I'm in this kind of health scare, I just know that I can't depend on you. Like, I just remember hearing that and feeling so criticized, so judged. And so the tool that I'm telling you to use is to challenge those negative thoughts. So I want you to specifically think about the criticism that your PMDD partner has said to you. And I want you to begin to challenge that negative thought or belief about yourself that came up because you got criticized by your PMDD partner. And I want you to replace it with a balanced and realistic perspective, which was for me, it was like, you know, you did the best you could. This was not, the criticism was not given to you because of a lack of effort. I think I would have been able to absorb the criticism if I really wasn't doing anything. If I was really in that place where I was pretty much like, kind of like, I'm actually not doing anything. I wouldn't have been offended. I would not have been offended if I actually wasn't putting forth effort. But I think when you're criticized, when you're giving effort, it hurts even more because you're like, I'm giving you everything that I have to give, and you're still criticizing me. But what you can do to rebuild yourself from that criticism from your PMDD partner is to challenge that thought and really think about, okay, well, my PMDD partner is saying that I'm not doing this. They're saying that I'm not showing up. They're saying that I'm not being supportive. But what is it that I'm really doing? Like, if you really think about it, you can say to yourself, I actually am showing up. It may just be that they're not in a place to receive it. And that's the golden nugget that I had to recognize that it doesn't matter what I would have done. Sometimes if your PMDD partner is in a negative place, they're just in a negative place. And there's nothing that you can do about it in the moment. But you may get criticized because you didn't bring them out of that moment. But sometimes they're going through a lot to where it doesn't matter what you do, they're still going to be in that negative place. And I remember taking so much pressure and putting pressure on myself with forcing myself to pull them out of everything that they're going through. And if they weren't out of it, it was on me because I'm supposed to be their helpmate. I'm supposed to be their partner. I'm supposed to be their person. But there's some things that your PMDD partner has to be responsible for because unless they make a decision to pull themselves out of that dark place, they're probably not going to get out of it. And you can't take on that burden and criticize yourself and take on the criticism and really believe them. So the next tools is a focus on your strengths. Focus on things that you are bringing to the table with your PMDD partner. Remind yourself of your qualities, the things that make you unique, the things that they valued about you. 9 times out of nine, they chose to be with you for a reason. They valued you for a reason. And I need you to remember that because a lot of times you can hear negative things from your partner who is supposed to be your person, but I want you to just recognize they chose you. They chose to be in a relationship with you. So what does that say about you? What does that say about your character? What does that say about who you are? You're not just some random person. You're a person that they chose to be in an intimate relationship with. So they couldn't have thought that you were that bad or not the person for them if they chose you at one point. Think about the state that they're in. If they chose you at a time where everything was good with them, everything was good in their life, and then everything goes to crap, and then all of a sudden they're criticizing you. The difference is there's the state that they're in their life. So before you accept any criticism from your PMDD partner, ask yourself, what's going on with them? Maybe they're criticizing me because they have stuff going on. Not because I'm not being good enough, not because I'm not doing my best, not because I'm not showing up for them, but because they're in a place where they're so dissatisfied with themselves that they can't even appreciate and see the value that I'm bringing to the relationship. And so they're criticizing me and consistently telling me if I do a little bit more, they would be happy. When in reality, they're not happy because they're choosing not to be happy because they're going through things in their life, in their relationship, and in their career and their family life. And they may have a whole plethora of things going on with them and in their mind that have nothing to do with you. So when I talk about the tool of challenging those negative thoughts, ask yourself, is this really me? Do they really have a problem with me? Are they really criticizing me? Or are they just not happy with their life? The only way that I would take criticism seriously is if everything else was great with someone's life and then they're talking about me. And that's when I start to take the criticism seriously because I'm like, okay, well, if I'm the only factor, if everything else in their life is authentically going good, not where they fake it and they're saying everything's great, but they're really lying. I'm talking about I've seen firsthand where work is great, family's great, finances are great, all the things are great, but then they have a problem with me. That's when I can be like, okay, I don't want to be the person that's, contributing to your sorrow when everything else in your life is going great. So you're challenging it by asking yourself, is it you or is it the life circumstance that they're in? And here's what I want to say about that. If you know that they're going through something and you know it's because of a midlife crisis, it's because of a health scare, it's because of a work stress, it's because of whatever, it is going to take time to get through that. So this is when I go into the next tool, which is setting boundaries. If your PMDD partner is in that negative place, and they're just consistently being negative and then you feel like they're dragging you down and you feel like you're trapped in all of these things. And if the criticism is so hurtful to you, I want you to start communicating some boundaries to your PMDD partner and letting them know. I want you to express how their words are impacting you and how you're not going to tolerate it. And what that may mean is you are going to stop talking to them unless they can stop yelling at you. Or you're going to stop talking to them until they learn how to not call you out of your name. It is okay to set boundaries when we're talking about this criticism because you're actually helping them by not allowing them to continue to talk to you when they're angry. You may be stopping them from saying things that they regret later on. So my tool for this is to set some boundaries to block out the criticism, to not let the criticism get into your mind, get into your heart, get into your emotions, and start to make you look at them like they're the enemy. And so the next tool is if you have created those boundaries and you're like, okay, I can't talk to you during these certain times because maybe your PMDD partner wakes up negative, right? And we've all been there when we're in PMDD, where we just wake up negative and we're like just negative for no reason. Like whatever is going on with them, they may just wake up negative. You're gonna have to engage in some self-care activities to distract yourself. You can't just be sitting there waiting for them. You can't be waiting for them to come and talk to you when they're ready. You need to do something that makes you feel good. You need to get a hobby. I have private clients that do dancing or badminton or knitting. I have clients that knit or watch TV. You need to have something that you can do to distract yourself that calms your nervous system down. Because my concern is that you stay on edge and you develop a deeper sense of anxiety, especially when you go into PMDD, because you're waiting for your PMDD partners to snap out of it. You can exercise, you can do relaxation techniques, you can meditate, you can draw, you can sketch, you can paint, you can go on a walk, you can spend time alone going to the movies or with even with friends. Do something to distract yourself after you're in that place of being criticized by your PMDD partner, because the longer you stay dwelling on what they said to you and what they did to you, the more damage it's going to do. Because your mind's going to start creating stories that you're not supposed to be with this person, you're not compatible, you need to break up. The only way you're going to get peace is to not be with this person. Your mind is going to create that story because you're allowing yourself to sit in the dirty diaper. And the dirty diaper is, think of the dirty diaper as the poo, and the dirty diaper is the hurtful words that they're saying to you. I don't know if you've ever had a child, but I have a child. She's 14. And when she was a baby, the doctors always said, make sure you immediately change their diaper whenever they poop or pee. And I remember like kind of like because I was a new mom and I was young and I was trying to Google everything. And I realized that when you leave your child in a dirty diaper for so long, they can get a rash on their bum. And so this is the same thing with the criticism from your PMDD partner. If you sit in it, meaning you keep holding on to it, you keep replaying it in your mind, you're going to get a rash. And that rash is what is keeping you keep bringing the comments up that they said again and again and again. If you're in that place where you're consistently remembering everything, every hurtful word that your PMDD partner has said, you haven't forgiven them and you haven't let it go. So self-care is supposed to be a way of distracting yourself from staying in that zone of being hurt by your PMDD partner so that you don't carry it on and look at them with the side eye and have all this bitterness and resentment with them. And the last tool is you need to seek support. You're not supposed to do this alone. And this is why I give you these free tools. And I always say book the private sessions because there's a lot. When you go into PMDD, you can have brain fog. Your PMDD partner can have brain fog where you're really not you need to talk, but you're not able to articulate what it is that you need to say in order to let go of this criticism, to get rid of this hurt, and to move forward in your PMDD relationship. And that's where I come in. I have literally been able to articulate things that PMDD partners and sufferers are trying to say, and they just can't get it out because I know both sides. I know within probably 90 seconds of talking to you, the point of view that both of you have. So even if you're not in that place of, knowing exactly what to say, I don't want that to deter you. Book those private sessions with me. I only have a few more spots for my 2-month private PMDD partner sessions where I meet with you weekly, but book those sessions so that you're in that place of really understanding that, the criticism that I'm giving. Number one, if I've given criticism before, I can forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for telling my PMDD partners to man up. Did I really mean it? No. Did I say it in the moment? Absolutely. So I had to take full accountability that a lot of times when my PMDD partner wasn't open with me, it was because they were repeating and relaying that criticism within themselves. And I had started that cycle. So you have to really forgive yourself. And that's part of what we work with in our private sessions is really our part, owning what it is that we said and did, and forgiving ourselves for it and allowing us to move forward where it has no hold over us. Because when you've been criticized by your PMDD partner or you criticize your PMDD partner, maybe you're the one. You're listening to this and you're like, yeah, that's me. I'm the one that criticized my PMDD partner. It's fine. There's no judgment here. But there's specific tools that you need for moving forward. And I don't want you to feel ashamed or feel like you're a bad person because you're having to use those specific tools. We've all been a place where we've said and done things in a moment of anger, in a moment of frustration, when our emotions are really overwhelming. We've all been there. But the issue is not about being there. The issue is what you're going to do about it after the fact, how you're recovering from it. So I always hold people accountable for their recovery in a lot of things. I don't necessarily hold people accountable for the situation that they're put in. Obviously, because we have PMDD for us that are listening, that the sufferers that are listening, we didn't ask for this. There's nothing in my body, in my mind, in my soul, in my spirit that ever wanted this, but we are forced to deal with it. And so just like I hold us on high regard and I tell you, hey, we have to work on this. We can't put everything on our partners and say, because I'm in a relationship, they're supposed to be a supportive PMDD partner and do all the things that I need them to do and all this that. We have to take some level of accountability. And a part of that accountability is making sure that we're not criticizing our PMDD partner to the point where we're doing damage because all that's doing is beating them down. When you criticize your PMDD partner, it doesn't make them better, it makes them bitter. I'm going to repeat that. When you criticize your PMDD partner, it does not make them better, it makes them bitter because they start looking at you with the phrase of, who are you? Who are you to talk to me like this? And then now they're not even addressing the issue. They're not even talking about the real reason why you're upset because all they can see is the criticism that you've given them back. So that's why it's so important that even when you get criticized by your PMDD partner, that you don't retaliate. Because when you retaliate and you criticize them back, now you're in the same position that they're in. You're in endless loop and it doesn't feel good. It 100% does not feel good. So if it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. Do not criticize your PMDD partner just because they criticize you because you never know what they're going through. And you may regret it when you finally get to that place, that day and that time when you recognize what it is that they're going through and you recognize that maybe what they were doing, it wasn't selfish. Maybe it was what we needed as a family, and maybe I just need to forgive myself instead of prolonging the inevitable and getting back on the same page. Because a lot of times when you're trying to get back on the same page with your PMDD partner and connect, and they keep bringing up this criticism, I want you to just own it and apologize and say, hey, this was my part. I'm sorry that this hurt you. This is what I did. But when you're operating in the ego and making it seem like you haven't done anything wrong, it's really hard for someone to forgive something that no one ever apologized for. It's possible, but it's very hard. So if you've not been in that place where you've actually apologized, then I really urge you to do it because you never know the impact that that could have on someone's life. This is, the way I always look at my private clients when they're in relationships. You're a team. What happens to you happens to me, vice versa. So this is not a one-off. So however your PMDD partner is feeling is part of your responsibility. And that's what I think my ex-PMDD partner didn't really get. It was kind of like this wall of like, you have your feelings, I have my feelings, and when we feel better about our feelings, we'll bring them together. Well, part of making us feel better together is to be together, right? How many times have you finally had that conversation with your PMDD partner, and then all of a sudden things were lighter, that weight was lifted, you feel like you're back on the same page? If you want to get those intrusive thoughts out of your mind about not being with your PMDD partner and all those things, then make sure that you're dealing with the issues that you have because that's going to erase, when you erase the criticism, it is going to allow you to see your PMDD partner as they truly are. If you're seeing them through the lens of criticism, you're going to want to absolutely break up. But I'm urging you not to wait till you see them with a clear mind in order to really criticize and judge whether this is the person for you. So until next time, do not criticize your PMDD partner. And if they have criticized you, use these tools to rebuild your self-confidence in your PMDD relationship. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.